Hey y'all, this is Val here with another Epic 7 video. Take a look at my screen. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw it in my summon video. I've kind of been a little MIA. To be honest, work has been crazy, but I'm going to try to get back into my normal video schedule. But you saw in my summon video, I've got Luna. Now, the question is, how many summons? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, for those who have not seen my video, I am happy to announce I went 121 summons to bring her home. Yeah! Hit it! Alright. Why in the world would I be happy about that? Well, if you watched the summon video, you know I picked up so many goodies along the way to 121 to get her. Was definitely the polar opposite of my Diane experience. My Diane experience, I went 121 summons. If you remember, she had Celestine as her artifact. I didn't get the artifact at all. I got Jack Doodle. I believe my boy Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka, could you tell me exactly what I got?
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
So, I got nothing with Diane, but Luna worked out very well. So, I've been building her, I've been working on her. With like everyone right now, we've got a lot of great units, not a lot of gear. So, we're here to talk about Luna. This is not her final form for me. We're going to talk about where I see myself using her, where she can be used, how to gear her, her abilities. We're going to go through the whole shebang, even memory imprint. If you are like rolling and you got money raining out of the sky, and every time you wake up and look in your wallet, you hear money, 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 you know, and then you got an SSS imprint, Luna, then, you know, more power to you. Val is not a whale. Val is, I'm a small dolphin in a sea of whales and killer whales and like bigger sharks and stuff than, okay, the fishing metaphor is getting out of control here. Anyway, so let's talk about her. Let's talk about where I'm going. Let's start with skills. It's a good place to start. Infinity Slash. Acquire 1 soul. Stabs the target a random number of times. Skill cooldown decreases by 1 to 3 turns, and damage dealt increases according to the number of attacks. So, what we got here is she can lower her skill 3 by using this anywhere between 1 and 3 turns based on number of attacks. She gets damage all the way across the board when you go here. There's no effects on this. This thing is just 120% raw damage. Now, chat down below, if I get it wrong, I said chat. Now, guys, down below, if I get this part wrong, please leave a comment and educate me on it. But as far as I'm aware, there is nothing really you can do to increase the number of attacks. It just happens randomly as long as with what the skill cooldown is. So, you know, there's not a certain set that's better than another one. If anything, the more speed you have, the more turns she's going to get, the more attacks she can do, the more chances you'll get to get a good proc, where you get the max number of attacks and the max cooldown for it. So there's really not much you can do to optimize this other than make this son of a bee hit like a Mack truck. I mean, that's the goal with this skill. You want it to hit hard. Take a look at her passive. Skill 2, Dragon Knight's Will. Increases attack and critical chance by 20% if the caster's health is more than 50%. Or increases defense and decreases chance of suffering a critical hit by 20% if the caster's health is less than 50%. So basically, you always want to have more than 50% health because you want the attack and crit chance. That makes her easier to gear for. That makes her easier to gear for 100% crit chance. You know, it lightens up that gear requirement. If you have bad luck with rolls like myself, I mean, it's just a blessing in disguise. The second part of this is basically she gets Diane's crit chance buff when her health is low, and she gets increased defense. I mean, that's what happens if she falls below 50%. But in places like Wyvern 11, she's definitely not going to be a tank. And then pretty much the dragon is always going to hit your tank as long as he or she is alive. So you really don't have to worry about that. You only have to worry about this in other places like PvP, Guild Wars, and things like that. So you probably want to bring along a healer to make sure she's topped off and above 50%, which really isn't that hard, especially if you're running like Celestine, if you're running like an Angelica who heals 2 people when she heals 1, or if you have like a Rod of Amaryllis, which also will help keep her topped off. No problems, easy to keep above 50%. Her third skill, Ragnar Spear. Acquire 3 souls on this bad boy, 10 turn cooldown. Ooh. Soars into the air and hits the enemy with a spear with a 90% chance to decrease defense for 2 turns. Attacks with more powerful element, meaning if she's attacking a forest unit, her spear is going to come down as fire and hit hard since she is water. She's always going to attack with a more powerful element. Soul burn effect for the low price of 10 souls, we increase damage. I should mention that the base chance for this is 80%, but as you can see, I did pick up the effect chance. At max skill, she has a 100% chance to decrease defense, meaning we're going to want to pick up effectiveness to be max effective. No idea what happened with the voice there, but I went with it, I rolled with it, we finished it, let's move on. So, all in all, she hits like a truck, and she will defense break, meaning she is great pretty much everywhere. Her skill 1 lowers her skill 3. She gets 20% increased attack and crit chance, assuming you can keep her above 50%, and she hits like a truck. So, Val, she seems awesome. Where do I use her? For that, I had to use some advanced, in order to answer that, I had to use some advanced calculations that man has yet to see or completely understand. I contacted my alien brethren, we worked together, and the conclusion we came up with was, hold on, just a sec. Yeah. They said everywhere. So, you can use her everywhere. Just bring her. Just bring her. Now, maybe you don't want to bring her to Golem, right? Because, again, her skill 3 is going to hit for max damage, but every other skill still is going to be suffering the elemental disadvantage. So you're going to have reduced crit chance, reduced damage, increased chance to miss. So that might not be the best place to bring her, but I'm sure you could bring her. In PvP, she's really good. You can bring her there. You could bring her in, of course, Wyvern 10, 11. You could bring her to Guild Wars. I mean, just take her. Just bring her. Like, just old school for those that remember my buddy. She is going to be your buddy. Wherever she goes, you go. My Luna and me are the best friends we could be. My Luna, my Luna, my Luna and me. Now, for all those that got that reference because they're a child of the 80s, like me, congrats. For all those that didn't, I'm sorry you missed out. My buddy is basically Chucky. Look it up. All right, so let's hop into our stats. Let's start talking about builds. Let's start talking about gear. Let's start talking about artifacts. All right, so here's my stats. Now, this is not my Luna's final form. This was the best gear that I could scrounge up. Actually, I am honestly want to replace all of the attack gear, and I want to go Rage for the crit damage. I want to get her 100% crit, and then just destroy stuff with high amounts of crit damage. But I couldn't do that with the gear I have. I do have a gear set picked out. I have been farming Banshee, and I am working on it. Some interesting things to know is her default speed. Her default speed is 109, which is decent. I mean, it's decent. If you're going to be using her in PvP and you're looking to get turn 1 and say you only have 1 combat bar buffer like my team currently does, which gives 20%, then you're going to need her to be about 155, 160 to make sure that when your combat readiness person goes off, that she immediately gets 100%. It's been, in my experience and testing with the different units that I have, anywhere from 155 to 160 is going to get you around 82% to 86% combat readiness right at the start of a fight. My Requiem Roar does 20% combat readiness. Typically, she always gets turn 1. So that means she's immediately going to jump my whole team as long as they're at 80% minimum to the front of the line. So you want to make sure, if you're going to be using her in PvP and Guild Wars, that you are hitting the 155 to 160 mark. If you are not using her in Guild Wars or Arena, and let's say you are, but you're using double combat buffers or combat readiness buffers, then you're actually okay. You know, you could build her 120% pure damage, meaning in your boot slot, don't go with speed, you go with attack, because you don't have to worry about it. You know, your first combat readiness buffer is going to get turn 1, then your second one's going to get turn 2, which is going to put everybody to the front. So you can actually get away with like 120, 130, 140 speed. Actually, I don't think 120 will work. I think you minimum you would need about 125, 130 for double combat readiness. Because you're going to get, right now I have one that gives 20%. I'm working on a second one that gives 15%. So I'll get roughly about 35%. I know percentages don't stack that way, but roughly about 35% of combat readiness, meaning I would need her to be around the 65% area at the start of combat, and I believe that's around 125 to 135, if I'm not mistaken. I do need to test that, though, so don't take that part as the gospel. If you do know the speeds you need to start out at about 65% combat readiness, please feel free to comment down below, because it is really important for those people that are running double combat readiness. That's a lot of comps, like say people that run Requiem Roar and Dominil, or Requiem Roar and Rose. I mean, they all give combat readiness, and typically you build those fast. With in the case of Requiem Roar, she would be your fastest, and then your Rose would be your second fastest. Your Requiem Roar would need to be 200 plus, and then your Rose could be like 190, 195, just to ensure that once your Requiem Roar goes, that your Rose is definitely going to be the next one to go. Also, this helps you when doing guild wars, so then you can separate your combat readiness, and your team will still be speed tuned, which is very, very key. You always want to keep speed tuning in the back of your mind, regardless of the units you're building. You know, in my mind, I break it down to, is it a combat readiness buffer? Does he or she need to be faster than Requiem Roar? Is it a DPS? Where I plan on using them, and then I plan my speed accordingly. So no matter what combination of units I take places, I know they're always going to be speed tuned. My readiness buffers are always going to be faster than my buffers. My buffers are always going to be faster than my DPS, and my DPS are always going to be the slowest ones, depending on where you're using them and how you want to use them. Anyway, I'm sorry. I love talking about speed and speed tuning. It's a fun part of the game. But for my particular Luna, I will be using her everywhere. As I stated, I do want to go crit damage, but if you can't go crit damage, then going attack is really good. I also know several people in my guild that are building destruction, which relies on debuffs. So if you have a heavy debuff team, maybe you're running a Ball and Sezin, and you know you're going to have tons of debuffs, or you're running Requiem Roar, who has the attack down on skill 1 at max rank, it is 75%, or you're running a Torinor Guard, so you have armor break on skill 1 and it's at its max 75% as well, so you're pretty much assured you're going to have buffs. Then Rage is definitely a valid set to build, because she also herself does an armor break, which does count as a debuff. Maybe you're running a Surin, maybe you're running a any debuffer. You guys get the idea. Hell, Clarissa would even qualify, because she does do bleed on skill 3. But you can maximize it that way. In my case, though, I did decide to go attack. As you can see, I did go for the 155 to 160 range of speed, because I want to make sure that even with a single combat readiness buffer like Requiem Roar, like I have, that once I use that she will get turn 1. You can see my attack here. I've got 1600 bonus, 2700 total, 827 defense, 9700 HP, 71% crit by itself. With her buff, she has 91% crit, 160 crit damage. I'm not happy about it. It's weak sauce. I know it's weak sauce. I dislike it. But as I said, this is still a work in progress, and it's not even her final form that I want. This is just gear that I'm leveling, that I'm actually going to be passing off to Clarissa once it's fully leveled. I'm just using this in an interim until Banshee works out and gives me the exact drops I want. I have a really good, a decent-ish raise set right now, but it's like level 0, and I don't have the fodder currently to level it up, so I'm putting something on her to work in an interim until that set is ready. Effectiveness is pathetic as well. You do need effectiveness on her, even at 100%. What that means is she's going to throw her spear, and the check's going to say, all right, buddy, you land it, but do you land it, basically? And with 9% effectiveness, pretty much it's going to be no, especially on high resistance target. This is just sad and pathetic. This screams like, just don't rely on me. That's what that says. Don't rely on me. But under no circumstances do you put an effectiveness ring on this young lady. Unless you get like an attack effectiveness ring or whatever ring fits your slot, and it rolls like 4 or all 5 into attack, right? I mean, even then, you're still going to be missing out on even a, 85 with 10%. Because let's say it rolls max attack of 8%. I think 8% is max on a ring, 85 ring. So then your skill up roll, I think, can be a max of 8. So 40. So that's 48%. 85, 12. 85, level 1, 10%. It's going to be 50%. So it's already going to be better. That's really the only way I can see putting an effectiveness ring on this chick. I highly recommend against it unless you just get an insane attack roll on it. I mean, really. But, I mean, if you get it, hey, use it. I mean, if I had an effectiveness ring with, like, 40 plus attack on there, I would do it. I would definitely do it. I would still be getting 10% less attack, but then I get my effectiveness, and I would make sure that the skill 3 armor break lands. What I do recommend is attack, not crit chance like I have here, but because the gear that I have, if you take this away, you'll see I only have 51% crit. With her buff, I'd have 21%, 71% crit, or excuse me, I would have 51% crit with her buff if I were to take this off, and to me, that's just not good enough. I'm a big 85% or higher on crit rate, preferably 100% when I'm building a crit unit that is going to be specifically relying on crit damage. I know my crit damage is pathetic, but on the unit I'm going to use this on Clarissa, I will want high crit damage. So hopefully I get the rolls I want. But anyways, so why do I say 85% or bust? Because since I'm going to be relying on crit damage for her to do a lot of her damage, what good does it do to have 51% crit damage and then you have, like, say 200%, or excuse me, what good does it do to have 51% crit chance but only have, like, say 200 crit damage or 250 crit damage even? You're gonna quit a little over half the time. That is a lot of wasted DPS, in my opinion. I had this same theory and this same, I want to say belief, this same kind of standard in other games that I've played. If I'm going a crit damage build, 85% is the only acceptable number to even consider it. To even let it be a thought in my head, that is the only way I would do that. And the reason why I'm doing it on her, because again, she gets that 20%, which takes me into 91% crit chance, which is well above my 85%, which makes it worthwhile. But the more you crit, the better. The higher the crit damage, the better. Ideally, what you would want here would be a crit damage necklace with a crit chance substat, and hopefully all your rolls going into crit chance. That would be the ideal roll for a necklace on her. The ring should be attack, and the boots should be attack, depending on how you're going to use her and how your speed substats work out. If you have a single combat readiness buffer that gives like 20-25%, then you're looking at 150 to 160 for speed. If you have 2 combat readiness buffers, then you're looking at about, let's be on the safe side, let's say 130 to 140 speed, so that way to guarantee that she's going to get be involved in turn 1. She's not actually going to get turn 1. That's going to be your first combat readiness buffer, but you want her involved in the first turn order, right? You want her to move before the enemy team goes. So that's going to really be the numbers. So depending on where you fall in that, that's going to determine if you go with attack or speed boots. As you can see here, I went speed because I did get a high attack roll on them, and also because I got poop for speed substats and everything else, which pushed me into this. And because I'm currently only using 1 combat readiness buffer and Requiem Roar, I do need to be in that 155 to 160 range, which I'm well within. But I am switching to a 2 combat readiness buffer team, so I'll be able to switch out these boots to attack boots and hopefully get better speed substat rolls on the gear I plan on using to replace her. Of course, your left hand side here is all flat stat stuff, so really you're looking at substats. You want crit chance, crit damage, attack, and then effectiveness if you're looking to land that skill 3 armor break. If you have someone else that's already doing it, like Tornor Guard or something like that, then you really don't have to worry about depending on it so heavily, because you have a reliable person. If you're running like RR or anyone else that has 100% armor break chance in the team, then you really don't have to focus on effectiveness that much. You can swap out the effectiveness substat pretty much for whatever else you want. HP, defense, effect resistance, if you so choose. I don't judge. I mean, hey, effect resistance means you don't get hit with debuffs, which means you're going to be able to do damage. But in a turn 1 team, you really shouldn't be worried about effect resistance because you should be killing them before their turn comes up anyway. So really, that's what you're looking for. And keep in mind, on your weapon, you can't have HP percent, and on your chest, you can't have attack percent. So you can swap in whatever substats you're looking for appropriately on those 2 pieces. For me, on my chest, I'm looking for crit rate, crit chance, crit damage, HP percent, and defense percent for my attack units. That's just me personally, because you always want some survivability. It does no good to have, in my opinion, a glass cannon, because I've actually lived through this game with a glass cannon. My Requiem Roar currently is like that, and she just dies at the slightest hint of anything, and it's just not fun time. So on the chest, I really do like the HP percent, defense percent combo. You don't always get it, but I mean, I like it. You don't want your stats to roll into it, mind you. You want your stats to roll into crit chance or crit damage, but you want it there as kind of a buffer to have. Now, artifacts for her. There's a lot of artifacts that you could be using. I myself, because again, I like 100% crit chance, I like rocking the Hell Cutter, because anyone that moves before her, you're going to add, at my current level, I think it's 2.6% for everyone that goes before. Oh, it's at 3% now. So 3 units are going to move before. That's 9%, which is going to give me 80, which plus or 20 gives me 100% chance to crit. So that's why I like running with Helltooth. But Hellcutter, excuse me. You can also use Uber's Tooth is a good choice for her as well. I know some people that use Sigurd Scythe, but I mean, for her, I don't know if I like that too much. I prefer Uberus or Hellcutter in my mind, but there's more than one way to do this. Many streamers out there, many YouTubers have shown there are plenty of ways to build these units and make them effective beyond what everyone thinks should be the ideal. So just because I mentioned those 2 does not mean that other setups are not going to work. So keep that in mind as you go out there and you start to build your units, because that's a really important piece of it. Something that I like to preach in my streams and in my YouTube channel is make work what you have. You may go and ask someone for help and they say, oh, you got to go get XYZ. But if you don't have it and you're free to play and you're not a well, then you're not just going to go out and immediately drop every resource you have to get it. You have more important things to do. So being able to work with what you have and making it effective is a key part of these types of games, especially if you're in the free to play crowd. So never let, when a YouTuber says use this and you don't have it, look at your team, look at your overall makeup, and then use what is best for you. All right, always use what is best for you. And if you would like to know, pop into a stream, ask in my channel. I'd be happy to say, hey, you say, hey Val, this is what I got. What do you think will work best in my current team composition? And I'd be happy to tell you and work with you in what you have, and never say, well, just go summon this or just go get this, because it's never that easy, especially when you're free to play. Even whales have to spend considerable amounts of money to get one specific thing that they're looking for. So it's never just that easy. Now, I'm not very far with her, so unfortunately we can't look at all the friendship faces. I only got 2, which is upset, which really doesn't look upset to me. Does that look upset? Doesn't look upset. And then there's sad. Sad looks more, I would say the word would be wistful. That would be what I would think. That does not look sad at all. That looks wistful, would be the word I would use. Well, that's going to do it for our Luna review. She's a really good unit. I highly recommend her. If you're still debating on your 60 summons in, your 50 summons in, maybe you've only got 30 left to go and your resources are getting strapped and you're wondering, is it worth it to finish it? I can tell you it is worth it to finish it. She hits extremely hard. I mean, extremely hard. You're gonna be hard pressed to find a better single target DPS unit in the game, especially one that works so well in Wyvern and on skill 3 always will have elemental advantage. Those are just 2 huge things that you just honestly I think is worth sacrificing what you've been saving. So if you have a huge stockpile of bookmarks that you know won't get you all the way there, but you have some gems that might get you there, or if you're super close but you know it's going to tap you out on either gems or bookmarks, she is definitely worth the investment. I say do it. She is worth going broke for. And that's going to do it for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you have any questions or comments or notice that I missed something, please leave it down in the comments below. I'm a pretty humble guy. I'm always open to constructive criticism. As always, thank you for watching. And all you dudes and dudettes out there, stay frosty.